Justice delayed, but hopefully not denied. The International Criminal Court wants him to face charges of war crimes in The Hague, but many in Sudan want him tried on home soil. So, should he stay or should he go? His name has become synonymous with the worst types of evil committed against fellow human beings by one of their own leaders. He was known as the Butcher of Darfur, but his calculated campaigns of terror spread well beyond there. For 30 years, Omar al Bashir and his Janjaweed militia unleashed uncountable and unspeakable atrocities, resulting in the deaths of hundreds of thousands and the displacement of millions. In 2009, he became the first sitting president to be charged with war crimes, crimes against humanity and genocide by the International Criminal Court. But it's only now, a decade later, that Bashir is looking at finally having to face those charges. And as Adam Pletz reports, there's still a long way to go before the country's deposed strongman faces justice.
Omar al Bashir defied prosecution by the International Criminal Court for years as the iron-fisted ruler of Sudan. But that immunity began to crumble when he was ousted as president last year. First, he was given a 2-year sentence for corruption by a judge in Khartoum. Now, Sudan's transitional government says it will cooperate with the court in The Hague. It's charged Bashir with genocide and crimes against humanity in Sudan's Darfur region. But questions remain as to whether Bashir will actually be extradited.
His appearance in court is more important than handing him over. That's why it's now under general discussion. It will then be discussed in detail with the International Criminal Court and with the Darfur movements. The important thing is to establish a principle.
Bashir's lawyer and supporters say any trial must take place through the Sudanese legal system.
We refuse to extradite Omar al Bashir to the International Criminal Court because it's not a place of justice, but a political European court that was founded to try African leaders. And the African Union has previously rejected this court. We completely reject this decision and demand that the trial of any Sudanese citizen be done on Sudanese soil. Never before has any Sudanese been tried outside Sudan.
But for those caught up in the conflict in Darfur, extradition is non-negotiable.
If Omar al Bashir didn't go to trial in an international criminal court, then the trial here in Sudan won't be enough.
The criminals must go to trial, and at the top of the list is al Bashir. His trial should take place in the international court and not in Sudan.
Indeed, a central demand of the armed groups that are negotiating an end to the 17-year conflict in Darfur is that Bashir must face trial at The Hague. After years of crippling sanctions, the interim government now hopes to normalize relations with the West. It views cooperation with the International Criminal Court as one means of doing so. But the court will only try individuals if they are present in The Hague. With opinions in Sudan divided, will the government commit to extraditing Bashir? Or does it hope to set a precedent that would see him tried by the International Court, but on Sudanese soil? Adam Pletz, The Newsmakers.
Well, to discuss this, let's go to our panel. And here with me in the studio is Elkhatim Elmahdi, and he's an executive producer with TRT Arabi and a Sudan commentator. Abobaker Adam joins us from London, and he's a lawyer and political commentator. Also in London, Maddy Crowther, the co-executive director at Waging Peace, a UK-based group campaigning against human rights violations in Sudan. Thank you all so much for joining us. Now, I want to start with you, Elkhatim. I want to clarify something with regards to language. What exactly was said with regards to the possible handover of Omar al Bashir to The Hague?
Yes, on the face of it, many of the news outlets that did cover this story were focused on the word handover. And the way I heard it, and many others people heard it, Mr. Taishi said that they have agreed on al Bashir and whoever is wanted by the ICC to attend the trial. Now, there is...
Agreed to attend?
Yes, attend. Attend is... there is a big difference between attend and deliver, because in legal terms, and my colleague from London can discuss this more, to attend is maybe the tribunal itself can come to Khartoum, or a special tribunal can be held in Khartoum. But to deliver al-Bashir to ICC is a different mechanism totally.
And to get him to The Hague.
Yes.
Exactly, that would be a completely different story. All right, so thanks so much for clarifying that. So now, where and how are the next questions? I'll go to you, Abobaker, in London. How and where do you think Omar al Bashir should be tried? Should it be in Sudan or in The Hague?
Okay, thank you so much. To start with, I'm going to start with the preamble. The most serious crime of concern to to humanity as whole must not go unpunished. People have been waiting for very long for justice, and I'm really pleased that to see international justice now start biting all these criminals. In fact, al-Bashir could be tried in Sudan, and it could be in The Hague, because the ICC, the Rome Statute says in Part 3, in Article 3, that the court is placed in the Hague, but at the same time, the court might decide to hold its session anywhere where they think is beneficial for the justice. So it is open for interpretation, but the main point is he must be tried before International Criminal Court for the crime he committed, crime against humanity, war crime, and genocide.
He must be tried, but very quickly, where? Does it matter where, Abobaker?
It is matter, actually. In my personal view, it never been tried before that the court held its session outside The Hague. But because Article 3 gives this possibility, I think it's more beneficial for the victims and also for the wider audience, and also to collect more evidence, and also people to see justice being done. So if it's in Sudan, and also if it's been televised, and a lot of issues, but this is a new territory, we have to explore it. But it's possible, and it could be more beneficiary for the Sudanese people and the victim and their family to be tried in Sudan. Yes.
Okay.
Under the ICC. So it's not like a national court, but the ICC to have the session in Sudan.
The ICC to have a session in Sudan. Maddy, what's your view? Does it matter where Omar al Bashir is tried?
I mean, I don't presume to have an opinion on that, not being a victim, and that's really what I hope happens here, is that victims' voices are heard in this, and this doesn't become a kind of political bargaining chip in the negotiations happening in Juba or on the ground, where sort of certain political groups might have to be conceded to in having him either seen there or in The Hague. So it's more that I want victims' voices to be heard in this, and it would be interesting to hear whether Al-Taishi and others are consulting with victims when they're making these kind of proclamations, and you know that would be our goal in all of this, is that their wishes are respected.
Indeed, consulting with victims. Why has it taken so long for this to come about? Because there was an arrest warrant for him since 2009, 10 years. Why?
Yes, but we have to remember that al-Bashir regime and for the past 30 years Sudan has been a rogue state, and like a pariah, treated as a pariah in the international community, and it became sort of a rallying call for al-Bashir and his acolytes to defy the international community and try to appear as if this has nothing, does not apply to them, and they will not be held under their auspices.
And he even travelled to Arab countries?
Yes, to limited countries in the Gulf countries, and mostly 2 or 3 neighboring countries. He did try to go to China, and it was a big mess at that time, and he got lost on the way. It's really funny and gruesome at the same time.
And he attended a football match, did he not, in South Africa as well?
Yes, and he narrowly missed being delivered to the ICC by the order of South African court. Again, it sort of became a rallying call, as I said before. But don't forget, al Bashir is a general in the army, and he did at that time enjoy some support between the general ranks in the army, and that went a long way in helping him stay in power at that time.
Maddy, to you, why do you think it's taken so long, and why do you think this call is happening now?
Well, I think it's taken a long time because, you know, Bashir is just a figurehead, an incredibly important one as head of state. But there are others who stand accused, who are co-indictees, who also face similar risks. And he was very much presenting himself as their protector. I think it's come about now for interesting reasons. Obviously, the uprising in 2019 can't be disregarded. But I also think we need to be a bit wary that there are political and militia-based groups in Sudan that are currently trying to escape scrutiny for their own crimes. And it's interesting to see this call for justice now at a time where discussions are really ramping up about what's going to happen to figures like Hemeti, who is second in command in the civilian and military government and stands accused as Janjaweed leader of some of the worst crimes, but also more recently stands accused of crimes committed in Khartoum when he committed and his forces committed a massacre of 128 individuals and 70 rapes. You know, that case is still pending. So there's a little bit of skepticism from my part as well about the fact that this could be used as political cover by those with pretty nefarious motives.
Abobaker, would you agree that this could be used as a political cover?
Yeah, because he's been escaping actually for very long, even before 2009, when the sealed list, the inquiry commission handed it to the Kofi Annan back in 2004. Since that time, with 501 person required for international justice. Since then, he's been escaping until the indictment back in 2009. He visited some countries, even party to the Rome Statute, like Jordan and South Africa. All this is just a slap on the face of justice for very, very long because of real politics between different countries and because there is no real will. You know, we know that the ICC hasn't got army to capture him. It depends on the cooperation of countries. I know that Jordan and South Africa has been condemned, but at least, you know, even so, it took very long as many legal issues. But at the end of the day, we are pleased that now the time has come for him to be the first sitting head of state to be tried. So that's, I think, in itself is a big achievement for the ICC. And it's a big achievement for the people who have been campaigning for years and years for justice for the victim of his crime in Sudan and elsewhere.
Okay, and you say, of course, it doesn't have an army, but do you think it has a chief, Elkhatim, the ICC?
Yes and no, but at the end of the day, the ICC itself, as Mr. Adam just ventured, depends on the cooperation of other countries. But again, that would beg the question, would it be better if he is tried in Sudan? I don't think so, at least in my humble opinion, because 30 years of al Bashir regime, there is so much corrosion that ate away at the judicial system over there in Sudan. And frankly, I wouldn't trust them with trying the recent cases. Let alone trying al Bashir for atrocious crimes committed just 10, 15 years ago.
Abobaker wants to come in.
Yeah, I just want to clarify this point. When I say tried in Sudan, it's different because there is 3 levels of trials. One of them by the ICC, and the other could be kind of hybrid courts, and one would be the national court. The national court because we know that the principle of complementarity, that means if the national court is capable and willing to trial the person, then the ICC has no jurisdiction. But we know that the legal system in Sudan is not capable and probably is not willing to try them. So the issue of being tried in Sudan by the national court is ruled out. What we are trying to discuss is the possibility of the ICC try al Bashir and other criminals, the 51 people inside Sudan with the jurisdiction of the ICC. This is quite different than trying him by the national court, which I agree with my Mr. Elkhatim, that is not capable, is not willing. We have a lot of work to do in Sudan in order to get our legal system in place as it was before.
Okay.
But even if we
I want to move on and say, you know, are we missing the point? Okay, Omar al Bashir has to answer for so much, but a point that was mentioned earlier, the number 2 of the Janjaweed, which of course is rebranded, is now in the government. So, you know, you called it before the soup. So can things really change?
Again, it's a yes and no answer, because the situation in Sudan is rather complicated. It has so many different moving parts, and it's a game of balancing pros and cons, because the council, that's now a hybrid council between civilians and military, most of the generals in the council itself are some way or another tied to what happened in Darfur and what happened in Southern Sudan. Let's not forget that. They were officers in the army that was fighting an actual gruesome war down there.
This is incredible, is it not?
It is, yes. But again, they are the same persons or the same forces at the status quo right now. They are the guarantors of let's say, civilian transition in Sudan, which is happening at a very slow pace. The rationale is you cannot endanger that transition by holding these people responsible. But if and when that happens, you need to have a model capable of applying to the situation in Sudan.
And this is so tricky and
yes.
so sensitive. Maddy, what do you make of the fact that the same people, and you mentioned this before when you talked about Hemeti, the same people involved in Darfur are in the governments now? And as our guest here was saying, Elkhatim, this is such a sensitive and delicate issue that could actually jeopardize the transitional system. To you, Maddy? Maddy, okay. I'll put that question to you, Abobaker. The same people that were in the Janjaweed are now in the actual transitional government. So, you know, how sensitive and how tricky is this?
Yeah, to be honest, you know, the information available for us is very limited. As I earlier mentioned, Antonio Cassisi gave list of 51 persons back in 2004, and we do not know for sure who are they. In 2007, we knew that Kosheb and Ahmed Mohamed Ali, these two of them has been indicted back at that time. Then in 2009, Al Bashir. The rest of the people, we are not quite sure who are there. But the situation who referred by Resolution 1593, it was about the situation in Darfur exclusively. So it has got nothing to do with the other issues happening in the other part of the Sudan. There could be some people in the government now, they are involved, but we have never seen this name as yet. But we know for sure a lot of people are involved in crime, and that crime is especially the Janjaweed and some of the leaders, so it would be involved. could be another level of trial and another cases which we have to look into, especially where a lot of victims, not only in Darfur, even in Khartoum in 2013, 2016, and also we know that what happened in July 2019. So many criminals could be or perpetrators in so many different levels of the government and the army.
Okay.
But because of the immunity and because of a lot of complication with the current political situation, people, they have to handle it very carefully because we have to make sure that we're going to pass this period. But as I earlier mentioned, all this crime will not go unpunished. So we know for sure at some point all these things will be uncovered.
Okay, and let me bring it back to the studio here. And Elkhatim, what do people in Sudan want? Do they all want? And when we spoke earlier, I appreciated then that it isn't just Darfur, it is crimes everywhere. And you yourself have first-hand accounts of so much from the country. So tell us, what exactly do they want to see happen to al Bashir?
That's a good question. Given what's happening right now in Sudan as a whole, we are going through a huge change. But ask any of my generation, even Mr. Adam, who is speaking to us right now from London, there is no single house or family that hasn't been touched some way, somehow, by what al Bashir and his regime did. And I remember in my younger years, trying to go just for simple errands, and knowing that I might not come back because I would be conscripted to fight in southern Sudan. At that time, it was part of the country. So these tidbits and the sentiment generally, everybody knows al Bashir is a criminal. But you cannot put the whole country in one category, saying that they all want him to be tried here or there. There is difference in opinion, and that should be assigned to the culture of the country itself. But all in all, we all agree on principle. Al Bashir is criminal, his regime was a criminal regime, and they should all face justice. And if not in Sudan, then why not in international justice? International community has a responsibility.
Great, let's bring Maddy in. What do the people that you speak to, Maddy, that the survivors, victims, tell you? What do they want to see?
Yeah, so at Waging Peace, we work with asylum seekers and refugees based in the UK. And there are a mixture of views, and that's really what I think needs to be reflected. There are those who are very firm that they want Bashir delivered to the Hague for the symbolic value of that. There are those that want the harsher punishments that would be attendant to a trial in Sudan. So I think there's that. There's also here in the UK particularly, and I'm sure elsewhere, a really burgeoning movement for people who want to speak about issues beyond Bashir. You know, this is a moment of national reckoning where people are realizing that there are reasons that conflicts that, like that in Darfur, in the Nuba Mountains, Blue Nile, came about. Issues to do with identity, belonging to the state, racism, class divides. These conversations need to happen beyond Bashir for there to be a kind of true and meaningful peace in Sudan, true justice. So I kind of am hearing this movement, this groundswell here, for people to be wanting to talk about what justice and accountability even means and how the new Sudan can be built to accommodate those.
Okay.
Let me clarify just a quick point raised by Maddy. Al Bashir, even if he's tried in Sudan by any kind of court, special or regular, cannot face justice because at the end of the day he is over 70 years old, and the Sudanese criminal code does not, if he is, for example, cannot face capital punishment because he is over 70 years old and cannot be held responsible in that, they will go to jail for a few years. So that's why going to the International Criminal Court is rather symbolic. In bringing justice.
And in a way, it feels like it really will be justice delayed, justice denied. Would you agree, Adam? Abobaker?
Yes, yes, actually, because the issue of trial of al Bashir in Sudan is ruled out completely following the referral by the Security Council. So this is not issue. We have, as a country, we have obligation, legal obligation, to cooperate with the court in order to ensure that he will be tried. There is a lot of issues, not only his age. Also, there is a lot of immunity in the Sudanese legal system, and the commander's responsibility, which is not applied. One of the things, one of the most important.
We've run out of time, and I'm going to have to thank all of you. It's been a fascinating debate, which we could carry on. Thank you to you all, and to our viewers, thank you so much for joining us here on The Newsmakers, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for your company. Bye-bye.